The alarms blared through the bridge of the United Earth frigate Valiant Dawn, as Captain Frank Morrison studied the readings with growing concern. 3 days had passed since they'd entered this section of space, and what they'd found defied explanation. 13 warships, each larger than their own frigate, hung motionless in space like metal corpses. Debris scattered through the void told a story of violent death. "Get me closer scans on that destroyer, Lisa," Frank ordered. His chief engineer, Lisa Matthews, adjusted the sensors from her station. Fresh out of Earth's military academy at just 35, Lisa had already proven herself invaluable during their 6-month mission to explore the Outer Rim. "Sir, the damage patterns make no sense. These ships weren't hit by weapons fire or meteors. It's like something just tore them apart." Lisa's voice wavered slightly as more data appeared on her screen. Second Officer Kevin Brooks leaned over, his console, face pale under the bridge lighting. "Captain, I'm detecting faint power signatures from one of the larger vessels. There might be survivors." Frank gripped the armrest of his command chair. Humanity had made first contact with aliens, only 20 years ago. Since then, they'd met peaceful traders and kept their distance from conflicts between other species. But this was different. This felt like stepping into a graveyard. "Prepare a boarding team. I want environmental suits and full weapons ready. Lisa, you're with me." Frank turned to his communications officer. "Rachel, see if you can pick up anything from their systems. Any records, logs, anything that might tell us what happened here." Science Officer Rachel Chen's fingers danced across her keyboard. "There's something, sir. Faint transmissions. Old ones. Looks like distress calls recorded before whatever killed these ships struck." The bridge grew quiet as Rachel played the recovered audio. Static filled the speakers, then a voice emerged speaking in heavily accented basic standard. "This is the Gatrex battlecruiser Mighty Storm. We came as ordered. We submitted to the Dominion as required. But they said we failed the purity test. They're taking control of our systems. They're turning us against each other. Please, if anyone receives this message, do not answer their call. Do not approach the transmission cut to screams and the sound of tearing metal. Frank felt a chill run down his spine. The Dominion. He'd heard whispers about them at the last Earth Council meeting, a species that demanded total submission from everyone they encountered. Those who refused were destroyed. Those who complied became servants. "Play the next one," he ordered quietly. Another voice emerged from the static. "We are the Helian Cooperative. We came to negotiate terms. The Dominion said we must choose servitude or death. We chose death. This is our final transmission. Remember us. Remember that we chose freedom." More screams, more destruction. "Sir," Kevin interrupted, "I'm detecting an energy signature. Something's activating." Frank's blood ran cold. "Red alert. All hands to battle stations." The lights dimmed to combat status as the crew rushed to their positions. The Valiant Dawn wasn't a warship, but they carried enough weapons to defend against pirates and hostile wildlife. Frank prayed it would be enough. A massive holographic display materialized before their ship. A humanoid figure appeared, tall and imposing, with features that seemed to shift and change like liquid metal. Its voice resonated through the bridge speakers. "Greetings, primitives. You have entered Dominion space. Your vessel is now forfeit. Your lives are now subject to the Dominion's will. Submit immediately or share the fate of these vessels around you." Frank felt the eyes of his crew on him. Lisa clutched her console. Kevin's hand trembled over the weapons controls. Rachel had stopped breathing entirely. "This is Captain Frank Morrison of the United Earth frigate Valiant Dawn. We entered this space unknowingly. We mean no harm. We request safe passage to leave your territory." The entity's laughter was cold and mechanical. "You think to negotiate? To bargain? The Dominion accepts only one option: complete submission. Open your minds and surrender your systems to our control." "What exactly does that mean?" Frank asked, carefully. "Your ship will become part of our fleet. Your crew will serve as our agents. You will police the lesser races in this sector, ensuring all bow to the Dominion." The entity paused. "Resistance brings only death. Look around you. Everyone else who refused submission now decorates the void." Frank looked at his crew. He saw fear, yes, but also determination. Humans had fought countless wars on Earth for freedom. They'd risked everything to explore the stars. And now this entity expected them to become slaves? What if we choose neither? What if we simply leave? Frank stalled, his mind racing for options. Then you join the dead. The entity raised one arm, and the space around them began to shimmer with energy. Captain? Lisa's voice was steady despite her fear. I'm reading massive energy buildup. Whatever they did to those other ships, they're preparing to do to us. Options? Frank barked. Shields are up but won't hold long against their technology level, Kevin reported. Jump engines? Frank asked desperately. They're jamming our system, sir. We can't escape. The shimmering grew brighter. Around them, debris from the dead ships began to vibrate and shift, drawn by unseen forces. Dominion, Frank announced firmly. This is my final answer. We are United Earth's representatives. We bow to no one. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of failing shields as the entity prepared to unleash its power. Frank looked at his crew one last time. It's been an honor serving with you all. Then the first wave hit, and everything changed. The ship lurched violently. Systems sparked and failed. But in that moment of destruction, something unexpected happened. The Valiant Dawn's experimental AI core, designed by human engineers to think in ways no one else could, did something unprecedented. It began to adapt, as the Dominion's attack tore into the ship's systems. The AI started copying itself, creating thousands of ghost processes throughout the network. Each copy fought back in a different way, creating what the AI's human designers had called creative resistance. Sir, Rachel shouted over the alarms, something's happening to their energy signature. They're confused? Frank watched in amazement as the Dominion's figure flickered and distorted. The attack stopped, but only briefly. When the entity reappeared, it seemed different, angrier. What did you do? It demanded. Your systems, they resist in ways we have never seen. Lisa was frantically checking her console. Captain, our AI is fighting back, but it's not a matter of processing power. It's fighting with nonsense, with illogic, with patterns that don't follow any standard programming rules. Submit now, the Dominion roared, or we will destroy you completely. Frank stood tall. His ship was damaged but still flying. His crew was scared but ready. And for the first time in what the records indicated was thousands of years, someone had found a way to resist the Dominion, even if only temporarily. We already gave you our answer, Frank said. Now let's see who breaks first. As the battle resumed, the Valiant Dawn proved that sometimes refusing to bow down was worth any risk. The ship shuddered as another wave of the Dominion's power hit their shields. Frank clutched his command chair as sparks rained from damaged circuits overhead. Around him, his crew fought to keep their systems online. Shields down to 60%, Kevin reported, sweat dripping down his face. Another hit like that and we'll be sitting ducks. Frank's mind raced. Everything the Dominion had done so far seemed to come from raw technological power, not physical weapons. They were trying to take control of his ship, not destroy it. But what if that was the weakness? Lisa, explain this AI resistance you mentioned, Frank demanded as the bridge shook again. Lisa pulled up data on her screen while steadying herself against a railing. Sir, our AI is creating what looks like junk code, millions of random processes that serve no purpose. It's like our system is spinning its wheels, but somehow it's making their attempts to take control harder. Can we boost that effect? Maybe, but Lisa's eyes suddenly widened. Wait. Captain, I think the AI is learning from us. What do you mean? It's watching how we think, how we react to problems. It's copying human creativity and randomness. Lisa's fingers flew across her console. Captain, what if we could give it more human input to work with? Before Frank could answer, the Dominion's voice boomed through the speakers. Your resistance is futile. We have broken ships 10 times stronger than yours. Then why haven't you broken us yet? Frank shot back, buying time as Lisa worked. The entity appeared again, its form crackling with energy. You will submit, There is no other option. All beings in this galaxy belong to the Dominion. Frank looked at his crew. Despite their fear, he saw something else in their eyes. Stubborn human pride. That irritating human trait that had gotten them into trouble countless times but also pushed them to explore the stars. Rachel, connection the ship's intercom to the bridge. All crew. Frank waited until she gave him a thumbs up. All hands. This is the captain. I need every one of you to start thinking, not about your jobs or survival. Think about what makes you human. Think about art, about jokes, about dreams. Think about things that don't make sense but make you smile. Sir? Kevin looked confused. Do it, our AI is learning from us. Let's teach it to fight like humans do, with everything we've got, including nonsense. Throughout the valiant dawn, crew members closed their eyes and thought. The ship's cook remembered his grandmother's terrible singing. The security chief recalled jokes he'd heard in basic training. Engineers pictured impossible machines they'd dreamed up as children. The results were immediate. The AI's defenses grew stronger and more complex. Instead of logical patterns, it created chaos. It sent back random song lyrics when the Dominion tried to access systems. It created loops of old Earth cartoons to clog their scanning attempts. It's working, Lisa exclaimed. The Dominion's trying to understand our responses, but they can't process the randomness. The Dominion's figure distorted with what seemed like frustration. What are you doing? Your systems make no sense. Your defenses are illogical. Welcome to humanity, Frank replied. We make our own logic. For the next hour, the battle continued. The Dominion tried different approaches. They attempted to access the ship's navigation, only to find the AI had replaced star charts with children's drawings. They tried to override the weapon systems and got back recipes for pizza instead. Sir, Kevin announced, we can't keep this up forever. Our core systems are holding, but the AI is using massive amounts of processing power. We'll overload soon. Frank knew he was right. Their defiance was working temporarily, but they needed a real solution. As if on cue, Rachel suddenly jumped from her station. Captain, I found something in our database. When our scouts mapped this sector last year, they noted unusual gravitational anomalies nearby. There's a nebula 10 light-years from here that distorts all sensor readings. Can we reach it? Our jump drive is still jammed, but our subliminal engines work. It would take 6 months to reach it. 6 months running from the Dominion, using every human trick to keep their systems confused. It wasn't ideal, but it was a plan. Frank made his decision. Plot a course for the nebula. We'll lead the Dominion on a chase they'll never forget. You seek to flee? The Dominion's voice was filled with something resembling amusement. Your ship is damaged. Your systems are overwhelmed. Where will you run? Anywhere but under your control, Frank responded. The Dominion unleashed another assault. This time, they tried something new. Their power didn't attack the ship's systems, but instead pressed against the crew's minds directly. Crew members gasped as pressure built behind their eyes. Danny Carter, the chief medical officer, immediately ran to his station. Captain, they're trying some kind of direct neural interface. My sensors show massive brain activity throughout the ship. Everyone resist, Frank commanded. But he could feel it too. A presence trying to push into his thoughts, to make him accept submission. Images filled his mind. Visions of the Dominion's vast empire, the futility of resistance. But something else rose in response. Memories of home, of Earth's blue oceans and green forests, of family and friends, of every human who had ever fought for freedom against impossible odds. The pressure intensified. Around the bridge, crew members struggled. Some fell to their knees, but none surrendered. Think harder, Frank ordered. Remember who you are, and they did. A lieutenant thought about his childhood dog. An ensign recalled her first kiss. The whole crew pulled together, filling their minds with human experiences the Dominion could never understand. Impossible, the Dominion murmured. Your minds resist direct control. How? Because, Frank said through gritted teeth, we're not just computers you can reprogram. We're alive. We feel. We dream, we remember, and we choose. With a sound like shattering glass, the mental assault ended. The Dominion's figure flickered weakly. "Leave our space," it growled. "We will not pursue. But know this, the galaxy is vast and the Dominion is patient. We will meet again." The entity vanished. Systems across the Valiant Dawn began returning to normal as the jamming fields dropped. But the damage was clear. Half their systems needed repairs, and the crew was exhausted from the mental battle. "Did we win?" Lisa asked, standing unsteadily. Frank sank into his chair, suddenly feeling every bit of his 43 years. "We survived, that's victory enough for today." As the ship limped away from the debris field, plotting a course to the nebula where they could hide and repair, Frank realized something important. He had 13 destroyed ships around him, as proof of what happened to those who failed the Dominion's test. His ship was damaged but still flying. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't efficient. It wasn't logical. But somehow, human stubbornness and creativity had found a way where others had failed. As stars stretched past the view screen, Frank wondered if they were the first to survive because humanity was special, or if they were just lucky enough to be different enough to confuse an enemy that had never encountered chaos as a defense. Time would tell. For now, they needed to heal and prepare, because the Dominion had promised to meet them again, and Frank had a feeling that next time would come sooner than he'd like. In the depths of the ship, the AI processed everything it had learned. It had discovered that humans thought in patterns no other species used, patterns that made perfect sense to them but appeared as pure nonsense to anyone else. It filed this away for future use. If the Dominion returned, the Valiant Dawn would be ready with new tricks. After all, humanity had only begun to show what they could do when pushed to their limits. 2 days had passed since the battle with the Dominion. The Valiant Dawn crawled through space at quarter speed, headed for the nebula that might hide them from their pursuers. Everyone worked overtime fixing damage while others rested fitfully, jumping at shadows. Frank stood in the medical bay watching Danny Carter examine something on his screen. The chief medical officer had been studying brain scans of the crew since the mental attack. "The Dominion's attempt to control our minds left traces," Danny explained. "Neural pathways that weren't there before. But they're fading, like our brains, are erasing them." "Is anyone hurt?" Frank asked. "No, sir. If anything, our brains seem to be growing stronger barriers, like they're learning to resist." Frank left the medical bay and headed to the bridge. Rachel met him halfway through the corridor, waving her data pad excitedly. "Captain, I translated more of those alien distress signals. I found something strange." She pulled up data on her screen. "Remember the fourth ship? The one that looked like it had been cut in half? The Korthak destroyer?" "Yes. Their final transmission mentioned something about the memory of defiance. They said they discovered how the Dominion's control works, but they were destroyed before they could act on it." Back on the bridge, Frank gathered his senior staff. They needed answers before the Dominion found them again. "Lisa, can we examine that destroyed ship more closely? Maybe their data cores survived." "I'll suit up." Lisa reached for her environmental gear. An hour later, Lisa floated through the wreckage of the Korthak destroyer. Her suit lights cut through the darkness as she searched for anything intact. "Found something," she reported over the comm. "Their main computer core is damaged but not completely destroyed. Can you recover it?" "Trying now." Back aboard the Valiant Dawn, the team worked to extract data from the alien core. Hours passed before Rachel made a breakthrough. "Got it?" she shouted suddenly. Their captain left a hidden message. "Captain, you need to see this." The bridge screen filled with alien text that the ship's translator converted to basic. Frank read aloud. "To whatever finds this, the Dominion's power comes from neural linking. They connect directly to brains and override free will. We discovered they need uninterrupted connection to maintain control. Any break, even for seconds, disrupts their hold. We tried to resist, but the moment they established full connection, it was too late. Time between first contact and total control, 3.7 seconds. Once connected, they know your every thought. Our last hope was to sever our own brain functions temporarily, but the Dominion killed us before we could try. If you attempt this, may you succeed where we failed." Frank felt a chill run through him. 3 seconds. That's all they'd had between when the mental pressure began and when they resisted. Pure luck had kept them free. Danny, is it possible to temporarily cut off brain functions? The doctor frowned. In theory, yes. We use similar techniques for certain surgeries, but it's incredibly dangerous. Too long, and permanent brain damage occurs, or death. How long could we safely disconnect? 5 seconds, maybe 10. Any longer and we risk severe damage. Sir, Rachel interjected, according to this data, the Dominion would need at least those 5 seconds to establish full control. We might have found our window. Frank paced the bridge. The Dominion had promised to return. They needed a real defense, not just tricks and confusion. I have an idea. Dangerous, but it might work. He turned to his crew. What if we prepare each crew member to trigger a temporary neural disruption if the Dominion tries to take control again? Lisa looked worried. Captain, we're talking about risking brain damage across the entire crew. Better than becoming mindless slaves, Kevin pointed out. Frank made his decision. Danny, prepare the safest method you can. We'll test it on volunteers first. The next day, Danny presented his solution. A neural inhibitor that would block specific brain activity for 7 seconds. Small implants could be surgically attached to each crew member's brainstem. It's not perfect, Danny warned. There's a 2% chance of permanent damage with each use. And if someone uses it too many times, I'll go first, Frank said immediately. The procedure took an hour. When Frank awoke in the medical bay, he felt no different. Danny ran tests and nodded with relief. No damage. The inhibitor is ready for use. Within 2 days, every crew member had the implant. They didn't know when the Dominion would return, but they were as ready as they could be. 3 days after the surgeries, Rachel's console started beeping frantically. Captain, I'm detecting that energy signature, the same one from before. They found us. Battle stations, Frank commanded. This time they had a defense. The Dominion appeared on their screens, more solid than before. You thought you could hide. We are patient but not eternal. Submit now. We have nothing new to say, Frank responded, then experienced total submission. The mental pressure slammed into the valiant Dawn, but this time, every crew member was ready. Within the first second of contact, they triggered their neural inhibitors. For 7 seconds, the bridge went eerily silent. Every human aboard was technically dead to the Dominion's sensors. No brain activity to latch onto, no thoughts to override. When the inhibitors deactivated, the crew gasped as consciousness returned. The Dominion's presence still pressed against their minds, but something had changed. It worked, Danny shouted. The connection attempt failed. The Dominion's figure distorted with what looked like confusion. Impossible. You died for a moment. We chose to be dead rather than be yours, Frank replied. The entity attempted to connect again. Again, the crew triggered their inhibitors. Again, the connection failed. Captain, Lisa noted, our systems show their energy surges are getting weaker, like they're confused by our defense. The Dominion made one more attempt. This time, the neural assault was stronger, more desperate. The crew endured 7 seconds of darkness together. When they returned, the Dominion's presence had retreated. Your mind trick cannot save you forever, the entity warned. We will find a way to take control before you can hide from us. Good luck with that, Frank answered. We'll be here, ready to disappear every time you try. The Dominion vanished from their screens. Frank allowed himself a moment of triumph. They had found a defense that worked, at least for now. But as the crew celebrated their small victory, Frank remained thoughtful. Their defense was dangerous and limited. Each use risked brain damage. They needed something more permanent, something that could protect humanity if the Dominion ever reached Earth. Looking at his united crew, Frank realized they had stumbled onto something important. Other species had fallen to the Dominion because they tried to fight technology with technology. Humans were fighting with something simpler and more powerful, the choice to define their own existence. In the depths of space, far from any help, The valiant Dawn had proven that free will, even when temporarily set aside, could defeat total control. Now they needed to find a way to spread this knowledge to the rest of humanity. The war wasn't over. It had barely begun. But for the first time, someone had found a weapon that could wound the Dominion's perfect system. And that someone was human. Frank looked at the stars ahead and wondered if other species had tried this defense before. Had they failed because they couldn't coordinate? Because they hesitated too long? Or because they didn't have the human willingness to risk everything for freedom? These questions would haunt him in the days to come, but for now they had bought themselves time to learn, to prepare, and to decide how to use their newfound knowledge. The Dominion would return. Of that, Frank was certain. But next time, the valiant Dawn would be ready with more than just defense. They would find a way to strike back. Nicole Walker studied the schematic she'd sketched on her pad. As tactical officer, she was used to planning conventional attacks. But the Dominion wasn't a conventional enemy, and Frank had asked her for unconventional solutions. "Captain," she reported, standing before the assembled senior staff, "I think we've been approaching this wrong. We're treating this like a chess game when we should be playing poker." "Explain," Frank said. "The Dominion thinks they have perfect information. They scan our brains, read our systems, predict our moves. But what if we flood them with too much information? Bad information?" Lisa perked up. "Information warfare." "Exactly." Nicole grinned. "I've been working with our AI. We can broadcast thousands of false signals simultaneously. Different brainwave patterns, conflicting ship systems readings, make them question what's real." Ryan Phillips, the security chief, added his own idea. "While they're confused, I suggest we physically rewire our critical systems. Remove the digital connections they use to hijack us. Go analog." Frank nodded slowly. "We're essentially becoming ghosts, making ourselves unreadable." "More than that," Nicole continued, "we become a paradox. Right now, we're the first species that successfully resisted them. That's bothering them. We need to become something they can't comprehend at all." 2 weeks passed as the crew implemented their strategies. The valiant Dawn was transformed. Core systems now ran on manual backups. The AI broadcast a symphony of conflicting data. Crew members practiced coordinated thought patterns designed to overwhelm mental scans. The ship itself became a maze of contradictions. Navigation systems showed them in multiple places at once. Weapon signatures appeared and disappeared randomly. Even the life support readings bounced between impossible states. "They'll be back soon," Frank warned during a staff meeting. "We need to be ready." Rachel had been monitoring space for any sign of the Dominion. On day 16, her sensors picked up the familiar energy signature. "Here they come," she announced. The crew took their positions. This time, no one looked afraid. They'd prepared something special. The Dominion appeared, its form crackling with impatience. "Your tricks grow tiresome. We have had time to analyze your neural disruption technique. We have adapted." "Good for you," Frank replied calmly. "We've adapted too." The mental assault began instantly. The Dominion's power pressed against their minds with new precision, trying to establish control before anyone could trigger their inhibitors. But the crew was ready. Instead of fighting, they embraced the connection for a split second before activating their inhibitors. In that briefest moment, they fed the Dominion data Nicole's team had prepared. Information poured through the mental link. Memories that couldn't possibly exist. Thoughts that looped back on themselves. Dreams within dreams. Mathematical equations that solved themselves incorrectly but logically. The collected irrationality of human imagination concentrated into pure data. The Dominion's form flickered wildly. "What is this? Your minds. They make no sense." "Welcome to creativity," Frank responded. The entity tried to attack their systems next. Immediately, it encountered the new analog defenses. Manual switches and physical connections meant their weapons could fire without digital authorization. Life support ran on mechanical backups. The ship had become partially organic in its thinking. "Your technology regresses," the Dominion declared, sounding almost offended. Not regressing, Lisa corrected. Evolving to survive you. The Dominion attempted to scan them, to understand their new configuration. Instead, it received a flood of contradictory data. The AI broadcast showed them in 17 different locations simultaneously. Crew biosigns appeared to number in the hundreds, then zero, then thousands. You are making yourselves invisible to our senses, the entity realized. Not invisible, Nicole corrected. We're becoming noise, static. Your perfect order can't process our chaos. For the next hour, the Dominion tried various methods to regain control. Each failed spectacularly. Physical attacks met manual shields and analog countermeasures. Mental assaults encountered prepared deceptions and controlled disconnection. System hacks found deliberate weaknesses that led to information loops. The crew had weaponized human unpredictability itself. Finally, the Dominion's figure began to change. Where before it had been imposing and confident, now it appeared almost translucent, uncertain. You are not the first to resist, it admitted. But you are the first to resist so strangely. Your methods defy our understanding of efficiency. Maybe that's your problem, Frank suggested. You're so focused on perfection that you can't handle imperfection. The Dominion paused, processing. Your species fights by becoming deliberately worse at survival. Your ships are less efficient. Your defenses are crude. Your thinking is disorganized. Yet you succeed where more advanced species fail. Welcome to the human condition, Ryan quipped. We must recalibrate, the Dominion said slowly. You force us to reimagine what it means to assimilate a species. With those words, it vanished again. But something felt different this time. Did we just make it think? Lisa wondered aloud. I believe we did. Frank studied his crew. We've done more than just defend ourselves. We've forced them to confront that their methods aren't perfect. Rachel pulled up sensor data. Captain, I'm reading strange fluctuations from the debris field. The Dominion ships, they're reacting to what just happened. How's that possible? They're dead ships. Not entirely. Rachel refined her scans. There are traces of Dominion presence in all 13 wrecks, like shadows of their control systems, and they're destabilizing. Kevin checked his tactical display. Sir, those fluctuations match what we saw when we confused the Dominion just now. It's like our actions affected whatever control they still had over their former victims. The implications hit everyone at once. The Dominion's perfect system had flaws, and human chaos could expose those flaws across their entire network. We need to test something, Frank decided. Nicole, prepare another information burst. But this time, include our defense methods, broadcasting instructions on how to fight back. Sir, if we do that, the Dominion will know exactly what we're doing. They already know, Frank reasoned. But maybe, just maybe, other species could use this information if they found it. The crew prepared their broadcast. It contained everything they'd learned: the neural inhibitor concept, the information warfare tactics, the analog defenses, all packaged in clear, simple data packets. Ready, sir, Nicole reported. Do it. The Valiant Dawn burst transmitted their knowledge into space on multiple frequencies. The information scattered in all directions, carrying humanity's message of resistance. For several moments, nothing happened. Then space itself seemed to ripple. The Dominion reappeared but fragmented, its form splitting into multiple versions of itself. What have you done? It demanded, voices overlapping. You have polluted our network with irrationality, we shared, Frank stated simply. Something you apparently never learned to do. The multiple Dominion entities argued with themselves. Some demanded immediate destruction of the Valiant Dawn. Others insisted on analyzing this new development. A few even questioned whether their perfect system needed adaptation. You will regret this contamination, the loudest voice promised before all versions vanished. Frank sagged into his chair. They'd survived again, but now they'd taken a more aggressive stance. They weren't just defending anymore. They were infecting the Dominion's consciousness with human concepts. Captain, Rachel said softly. Sensors are picking up movement in the debris. One of the ships in the Gatrex cruiser. Its power core just activated. On screen, lights flickered across the hull of a ship that had been dead for years. Systems came online hesitantly, as if testing their own ability to function. They're free, Lisa whispered. Our broadcast, it reached whatever remained of their control systems. They're remembering how to resist. As the crew watched, the restored ship's engines ignited. Without warning or communication, it jumped away, presumably to spread the news of what was possible. Frank realized their mission had evolved. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were starting a rebellion through the simple act of refusing to conform. Human stubbornness had become an ideological virus spreading through the very systems the Dominion used to maintain control. Sir, Kevin broke the thoughtful silence. What do we do now? Frank considered their situation. They'd damaged, but not destroyed the Dominion's confidence. They'd freed at least one species from its grip, and they'd proven that human irrationality could crack the most ordered systems in the galaxy. Now, he decided, we prepare for the real fight. The Dominion will come back and they'll be different, changed by what we've shown them. Maybe more vulnerable, maybe more dangerous, but they'll come. The bridge crew nodded, understanding the weight of what they'd started. They had become more than the crew of the Valiant Dawn. They had become the first crack in the Dominion's perfect wall, and cracks, as any human engineer could tell you, had a habit of spreading. The comm signal reached them 3 days later, static-filled but unmistakable. Rachel adjusted the frequency, and a voice emerged from the noise. United Earth Vessel, this is the Gatrex ship Freedom's Dawn. We received your transmission. Your methods work. We broke free. The speaker paused. The Dominion hunts us now. They are different, changed, more aggressive. Frank keyed the communicator. This is Captain Morrison. What exactly has changed? They no longer offer the choice between service and death. They attempt immediate assimilation of any ship they encounter. And they're failing to control some of us. Your methods spread through our old networks. The connection cut abruptly, replaced by the Dominion's energy signature. We return, not for negotiation, but for eradication, the entity announced. Multiple versions of it appeared this time, each slightly different. Some transparent, others solid, some angry, others analytical. Your infection spreads through our systems. Species that once bent knee now resist. This ends today. Frank's crew took positions without being told. They'd played this game before. But something felt final about this encounter. This is Captain Frank Morrison of the Valiant Dawn. We're ready for you. Are you? All Dominion voices spoke in unison. You have destroyed the order we brought to this galaxy. Now we destroy the source. The attack came from multiple angles. The Dominion had learned from their previous encounters. Instead of trying to control minds or take over systems, they simply tried to overload everything at once. Power surged through the ship. Alerts blared as systems struggled to handle the assault. This wasn't the precise control attempts from before. This was raw destructive force. Shields failing, Kevin shouted. They're not trying to infiltrate, they're just trying to kill us. Frank made an instant decision. Evacuate. All crew to escape pods. Now. Sir? Lisa looked stunned. We can't. Abandon ship. Look at them. Frank pointed at the multiple Dominion figures. They're broken, divided. They're more afraid of what we represent than they are powerful enough to contain it. We've won our war. Now go. I won't leave you, Captain. Ryan remained at his post. That's an order, Frank barked. All of you evacuate. Clicked. Crew hesitated only a moment before rushing for the escape pods. Frank watched them go, proud of everyone. As the last pod launched, he turned to face the fractured forms of the Dominion. Just you and me now, he said quietly. You sacrifice yourself for nothing, the Dominion declared. Your ship dies. Your species remains vulnerable. You're wrong. Frank moved to his engineering console. About so many things. He began typing rapidly, overriding safety protocols. The ship's reactor, damaged from the assault, began to surge, with power. "What are you doing?" the Dominion demanded. "Something human," Frank replied. "I'm creating a feedback loop." Lisa had once explained how the AI had adapted human thinking patterns. Frank had learned something from that. The Dominion's consciousness spread across their network, couldn't handle certain kinds of paradoxes. He activated the ship's emergency beacon, but modified it to broadcast not a distress signal, but a message. The Dominion fears chaos because they can no longer control it. We taught them doubt. We showed them that perfection isn't strength, it's vulnerability. The reactor surge built higher. Frank could feel heat through the deck. "You corrupt our perfection," the Dominion accused, their forms flickering more rapidly. "No," Frank corrected. "We reminded you that perfection doesn't exist. The universe is chaos, and only those who can adapt to chaos survive." With final keystrokes, Frank created the feedback loop. The ship's communication systems, linked to everything the Dominion had tried to access during their battles, began broadcasting the entity's own consciousness patterns back to itself, multiply endlessly. The Dominion figures shattered into thousands of fragments. "Stop! You cannot." "I can," Frank said firmly, "because I'm human, and humans do impossible things when we choose to." The Valiant Dawn exploded in a flash of light that could be seen from light years away. As the shockwave expanded, it carried something more than energy. It carried an echo of human defiance, amplified by the feedback loop into a pattern that spread through the Dominion's entire network. Across the galaxy, the effect was immediate. Ships under Dominion control suddenly had moments of clarity. Races that had served for generations remembered what freedom meant. The perfect order that had ruled for so long began to unravel, not through violence, but through the simple truth that control isn't strength. The escape pods from the Valiant Dawn were picked up by the Gaytrek ship Freedom's Dawn 14 hours later. The crew was shaken, but alive. Lisa held fragments of their AI core, and Rachel carried backup copies of their defense methods. "Captain?" Kevin asked as they recovered in the alien medical bay. "He knew," Lisa said quietly. "He knew that destroying the ship would spread our signal further than any transmission could. The Dominion's network used the explosion to propagate our methods across their entire system." Months later, reports filtered in from across the galaxy. The Dominion still existed, but changed forever. They no longer demanded submission. Some said they'd learned to ask. Others reported they now negotiated treaties instead of delivering ultimatums. The United Earth Council debated whether to classify the mission a success or failure. They'd lost their ship and captain, but gained something far more valuable: proof that humanity's greatest weakness, our tendency toward chaos and irrationality, was actually our greatest strength. The Valiant Dawn never returned to Earth, but its legacy did. Human ships began carrying modified AI cores that could think irrationally. Defense systems incorporated planned imperfections. And most importantly, humanity entered the galactic community not as conquerors or supplicants, but as the species that taught the galaxy's greatest empire that perfection was a choice, not a necessity. Frank Morrison's final transmission became required reading in every human school. The Dominion asked us to bow. We taught them to kneel. But students also learned the follow-up message that spread through the galaxy. They feared our chaos because it reminded them what they'd lost: the freedom to choose imperfection. Years later, when young humans asked their teachers if the HFY Dominion was truly defeated, the answer was always the same. The Dominion wasn't defeated, they were transformed. And all it took was one ship that refused to bow, one captain who chose to fall like a star, and a crew brave enough to turn their chaos into a weapon. In the vastness of space, the Valiant Dawn's echo continued to ripple outward, a reminder that sometimes the quietest rebellion, simply refusing to surrender, can shake the foundations of the mightiest empire. The galaxy never forgot the lesson of the human ship that burned bright and brief. That consciousness is more powerful than control, freedom more valuable than order, and the choice to defy perfection the most perfect choice of all. And in the silence of deep space, where the valiant dawn had made its final stand, captains from 100 worlds would slow their ships in tribute, knowing that here, a single vessel had proven that the right to choose your own path was worth any sacrifice. The Dominion still ruled vast territories, but never again would they rule absolutely. They had learned what Frank Morrison gave his life to teach them, that in the vast tapestry of the universe, even one defiant thread could unravel the entire pattern. Humanity had shown the galaxy something new, not how to conquer, but how to remain free. And in doing so, they had left their mark on eternity itself.